We are down to the final 3 weeks of the NFL season. Week 16 kicked off last night with a good one, a good Thursday night game. Broncos and the Chargers. Chargers finally getting a big win. You know, the Chargers I've been sitting here telling you this week after week that the Chargers can never win a big game. Well, what they do, they went out last night and they won a big game, and they came back a good second half after the free kick, right? The free kick, the first one since 1976. Did you know the rule? I knew the rule. Not lying, dead honest. I knew the rule. I was sitting there saying, a free kick. But because of and it was the penalty that really screwed them. And that's what screwed the Broncos for a lot of this game, were big penalties in bad spots. And we'll go over all that. We're going to go over a lot of the big games coming up. But I wanted to start with the report yesterday from The Athletic that came out about Woody Johnson and Madden ratings and Jerry Jeudy and the nixing of the trade and everything like that. And I'm going to take a little different viewpoint than most people. Listen, the Jets are as dysfunctional as it gets, right? But is this the worst of the worst? No, it's not. One, because I think Madden ratings are probably pretty accurate. Okay, and if he thinks that the Madden rating was low, I don't know what he considers a good Madden rating and what he considers a bad rating. But the Madden ratings themselves are pretty accurate. And they get updated through the internet. There's updates in the game every week. So it's not that terrible. Now, I wouldn't be asking my 17-year-old kid or my, well, first of all, what is a 76-year-old man doing with a 17-year-old kid? That's a whole nother story, right? But that's another story for another day. I don't think I'd be letting him make decisions on trades. Now, I get it. You could ask for his input, because when I was 17 or 18, I think I had a pretty good grasp on what was going on with my teams. And I think I probably, I don't know all the intricacies of the trade, but I can tell you, hey, I think this would be a good trade. Or no, I don't think this would be a good trade. Now, I'm still not today a football evaluator of talent. And neither is Woody Johnson. This is why Woody Johnson and the owners just got to stay out of it. I mean, in Dallas, there's a couple places where you just got to stay out of it. You're a business guy. Don't do football. Why even bother having Joe Douglas on the payroll, paying him a couple $1 million? What's the point? Because he's a professional. Okay, there's a difference between professionals and novices. And me and you and Woody Johnson and his 17-year-old kid are all novices. We all fans. We all can talk intelligently about the game. We can all look at players and think who's good and who's bad and have our own opinion and have them be reasonably articulated opinions. But there's a difference between that and a professional. And Joe Douglas, whatever you think about him, good GM, bad GM, whatever, he's a professional. He does this for a living. He studies this stuff. You can't have and you can't also have Joe Douglas do a good job when he thinks he's competing against your kid. There's a quote in that article that says, he said, "I'm competing with a teenager." My opinion, it just makes him feel less important. He probably didn't think he had the input or the pull inside the Jets organization to even make trades. Now, on the other hand, also, let's be real. Jerry Jeudy on this team would not be the difference. The Jets would not be 10-4 rather than 4-10 if Jerry Jeudy was on the team as a receiver, right? There's so much more wrong with the Jets. So much more. You can't even get into it. We'd be here for hours with the dysfunction with the Jets. But do I think that Madden and the guys who put together the Madden ratings have a better grasp on players in the NFL than the guy who, after 4 weeks, sat his coach and his GM down in a meeting and told them to bench Aaron Rodgers? I do. So if Woody Johnson's gonna make an informed opinion, there are worse places he could go than the Madden rating. They're put together pretty good. The Madden is pretty serious about these ratings. The video games now are pretty good and pretty on point with their statistics, with their numbers, with their players, with everything, right? They're pretty incredible, those Madden games now. I haven't played it in like 5 years, but it's a pretty accurate depiction. Now, that being said, Jerry Jeudy, they probably should have made the deal. They might be a little bit better, but that would not be the thing that's missing from this Jets team is Jerry Jeudy. You weren't like, man, I can't believe the Jets are 4-10. Well, if they only had Jerry Jeudy, it'd all be different. They'd be heading to the playoffs, competing with the Bills for the division. No. There is a lot wrong with this team, and this just adds to the dysfunction that is the Jets, right? Now, they got a win last week. Okay, fair. They finally got a win. They should have won that game. This week, they got the Rams. Big game for the Rams. At MetLife, big game for the Rams. I don't think the Jets can stay with the Rams. I don't think they can compete with the Rams. We'll go through that in a little bit with the games. But as far as the Madden rating goes, listen, you don't want something like that coming out. It sounds bad, but I think it sounds worse, and people are making a bigger deal of it than it is. I think the big deal in that situation is that he's going to his 17-year-old and not the professional that he's paying millions of dollars. And apparently he's weighing their opinions the same. As far as the Madden rating goes, I think it's probably pretty accurate on most players. I really do. But, and again, that is not why the Jets are 4-10. And that is probably down on far on the list as to why the Jets are 4-10. But it is a cog in the wheel of dysfunction that is the New York Jets. And, it's just another piece. And Woody Johnson's not selling this team, so you can forget it. If that's what you're hoping for. This is what he does. This is his toy. He loves playing with his toy. He's not selling the team. It's not going to happen. This is what he does. So you got to have to figure it out. They got this. They're doing the GM search now. You got to hope that he's going to hire somebody that is good enough and a strong enough personality and has enough credentials to tell him to get lost and let me do my job. And I don't know if that's the case. Because I think these owners and these billionaires, they have yes men all around them. They don't like being told no. They don't like being told what to do. They don't like being told they're wrong. If your GM comes to you and says, I got this trade, it's a good deal, I think we should make it, you should probably make it. You shouldn't let the fact that Madden says he's a 76. And does Woody Johnson even know what the Madden ratings are? Like, does he know that a 73 is good? Does he know that an 89 is? Like, he doesn't know. His kid knows. And that's the problem, is that his kid told him. The Madden rating itself is probably not the issue, because it's probably pretty on point as far as whether or not Jerry Jeudy's a good player. I bet if you asked multiple people, they'd come within 2 or 3 of what the Madden rating is. So that's that. Last night we had the Chargers and the Broncos, and we had the free kick. Free kick, first time since 1976 that there was a successful free kick. Last time it happened back in 76, it was also the Chargers. And listen, this was a big game for the Chargers. The Chargers, I root for the Chargers. They're, somewhere on my higher list of favorite teams, I guess. I root for the Chargers. I feel bad for the Chargers. The whole, they just always seem to fall into bad luck. They can never win a big game. Last night, they won a big game, and they came back. They were down early. They were down with going into the half. The free kick, besides being a pretty cool thing to see and something that we haven't seen since 76 and that I've never seen in my lifetime, pretty cool, it was an important part of this game. And that penalty on the fair catch interference could have cost the Broncos their game. And it gave a little life. A playoff appearance. Could have cost the Broncos a playoff appearance if they fall apart now. Now, it gave a little life also to Cincinnati. Because Cincinnati is now sitting there going, we're still in this thing. And Cincinnati's a good team. Now, they've fallen off a little bit lately, but Cincinnati, they run the table these next 3 games, and one of them happens to be against the Broncos, and the Broncos lose the next 2 games, Cincinnati's in. And how about that if Cincinnati were to get into the playoffs? I think they'd be dangerous because they've just had the worst luck all year, right? They've had Joe Burrow would be in the MVP conversation if they didn't have such a bad defense, if they didn't lose so many games early, if they didn't lose such close games and be where they are now, he would be in the MVP conversation because he's had a fantastic year. One of the better years that we've seen in a long time. Joe Burrow, his best year, I think. And now here they are, 3 weeks to go, and they have a shot when everybody ruled them out. So the Broncos losing last night after they were up 21-7, I believe was the score. They were up 21-10 when the field goal was kicked, or 24-10, I believe it was, when the field goal was kicked, the free kick. Now here's what the free kick is. If you make a fair catch, you are allowed a free kick from where the ball was caught and where the fair catch was made. Okay, it doesn't have to be the last play of the game or it's an untimed down. So there are a couple situations where there are untimed downs in the NFL. One of them would be a defensive penalty at the end of the half or at the end of the game. The offense will get an untimed down because it's not fair if the game ends on a penalty, right? Because then the defense would just commit penalties on the last play and the game would end. So that's not fair. So that you get an untimed down. Another one would be the free kick situation. Now, if there's a punt or a kickoff where you make a fair catch, now it doesn't have to be at the end of you can get an untimed down and you can take a free kick. A free kick is basically a kickoff, but if it goes through the uprights, you get 3 points. Now, you can't use the T, but also you got to look at it as what happened in last night's game was Denver punted. The guy made the catch. The guy called for a fair catch at about the 40-yard line, right? His own 40-yard line. He was interfered with. Flag was thrown. Clock hit 0. And the penalty was a 15-yard fair catch interference. So now that moved him up to the 46-yard line of the Broncos, the plus 46-yard line. Now, normally, that would be what you do is from where the ball is, if you're kicking a field goal, you add 17 yards. Because you snap it back 7 yards and you have the 10 yards in the end zone because the goalposts are at the back line of the end zone. So you add 17 yards. So a 46-yarder a 56-yarder would normally be a 63-yarder. And that would have been out of his range. But because it's a free kick, there's no rushing. Nobody's rushing. So you don't have to snap the ball back. You sit there, the holder holds it, you get one kick. And the guy gets to kick it with nobody rushing. And what he did was he put it through the uprights because there was nobody rushing. They didn't have to snap the ball to start the play because there was no snap and it was a free play. They got 3 points. That cut it to 3. Denver came out in the second half. They couldn't run the ball. They again bad penalties with the roughing the passer on the play where the quarterback was going and he slid and just a dumb play. I mean, these defensive guys that do that go to take the quarterback's head off. It's dirty, 1. 2, it's a dumb play. 15 yards. It was 3rd down. And it cost them the game because they went in and scored a touchdown. And then Denver again couldn't score late. They gave up they needed a stop from their defense late to get the ball back. And what they do, they let the Chargers run right through them for a 45, 50-yard touchdown, and that iced the game. And the Chargers now, just like that, are back and playing well. Okay, they had lost earlier. They lost last week. They hadn't played well in a couple weeks. They never win big games. And now, but both teams are probably going to the playoffs, but the Chargers are now going to be in a better seed. And that was a big win. It was a big win for their confidence. It was a big win for Harbaugh. And the free kick, which was, like I said, besides the fact that it was pretty cool to see, and pretty cool to see a successful one because there's never been one in my lifetime. I'm born in 81. Last one was 5 years before. I wasn't even a twinkle in my parents' eyes when the last free kick was made in the NFL. So that was pretty cool. Chargers with the win last night. Again, a big win. And now Denver, they got to get that 10th win, right? Chargers still officially aren't in. They're like 98% or something. Cincinnati is sitting there licking their chops. They get Denver in one of the games. They have to win the 3 games, and they will be in the playoffs. All right, so now let's get to this week's games where there's a bunch of big games, playoff implications. 2 games Saturday as the college football playoffs start tonight. And then, so the NFL, of course, jumps right in Saturday to fill the void there, as they do every year. You know, you got the bowl games going on. You got the college football playoff tonight. You got the 2 games tonight. The NFL jumps right into Saturday. And the big game right off the bat on Saturday is actually, it's going to be the 4 o'clock game. There's 2 games. There's Kansas City and Houston, which is a big game. Will Mahomes play? He's still questionable. It sounds like he's going to play. And if you look at that, the line went crazy when it was Kansas City was an underdog, I'd say 3 days ago. Then the report came out that Mahomes had practiced, full practice, no problems, and it looked like he was going to play. The line just completely shifted, and now Kansas City is a 3.5-point favorite. They're 13-1. Like we said, they have the inside track. If I was Andy Reid, I would sit Mahomes because you don't want to risk it. It's not worth it. You have a game to play with, a loss to play with, and still be ahead of Buffalo. But it sounds like he's going to play. Big game for Houston, and that coach has done a fantastic job there. Second consecutive division championship he's headed towards. So, but then the 4 o'clock game, 4 o'clock, Baltimore hosting Pittsburgh, and this is the big one. Pittsburgh coming off a bad loss last week, probably one of their worst games of the season. Russell Wilson took some steps back. He didn't play as well as he did the rest of the season. He kind of played like I thought he would play the whole season last week. They were dominated on both sides of the ball by the Eagles. The Eagles had almost 300 yards of total offense more than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh also got killed on the time of possession. The Eagles held the ball almost a full quarter more than the Steelers. So we'll see how they bounce back. 10-4 Pittsburgh in that division race. Baltimore 9-5. The winner of this game is probably going to win that division. So this is a huge game. Saturday 4:30 is the time. And then you go to Sunday. Sunday, you got some big games as well. The Jets are involved in one. You got the Rams at 8-6, hanging on. They have the lead in that division now. They're going to have to win that division because I think the Commanders are probably going to get that last wild card spot. The Rams at MetLife against the Jets, the 4-10 Jets. Jets coming off a win, their first win for either team since October here in New York. That game is a 1 o'clock game. Other big games, you got Detroit. Detroit limping in at 12-2. Now, Detroit, it's the top of the NFC is Detroit, the Vikings, and the Eagles, all at 12-2. The Eagles seem to have the inside track to that 1 seed. Now, who needs it more? Detroit needs it more than either any of the 3 teams. They are 12-2. They're playing the Bears in Chicago, and it could be tricky for them. And I'm going to tell you why. The Bears aren't very good. The Bears are no good, but it's a division game. It's a rival game. They're coming off a loss. They're coming limping in with a ton of injuries. Montgomery out for the season, a strain in the MCL. Detroit's in trouble. Detroit's reeling. If you could be 12-2 and reeling, that's Detroit. If they win this game, listen, it's tough for the Eagles. The Vikings all 3 teams have a tough road, but the Vikings are right there for the division. There's a possibility that the Lions could go from being the 1 seed, basically the whole season, down to the 5 seed and having to play a road playoff game on Wild Card Weekend. And that's just a huge difference. A huge difference. There's a possibility they get the 1 seed, road to the Super Bowl through Detroit, home field throughout, a bye in the first round. And there's also a possibility that they're playing week 1, Wild Card Weekend on the road at somebody like the Rams, who, I mean, that would be a hell of a game. The Rams could possibly upset them that game. So, I mean, that's a huge game. Washington, Philadelphia, 1 o'clock, another big one. Washington trying to shore up a playoff spot, 9-5. The Eagles right there with Detroit, 12-2, probably the best team in the NFC, trying to basically jump ahead. And they have the same situation. The Eagles are going to win the division. So the Eagles have guaranteed themselves at least 1 home playoff game. It's not guaranteed they win the division. Washington technically could still catch them. But the Eagles, with a win or a Washington loss or a tie, they will win the division. And then you got the Bengals and the Browns, 1 o'clock Sunday on CBS, a huge game now. That game went from possibly meaning nothing if Denver would have won last night to now Cincinnati has a pulse. They're back in it. They need to win 3 games. One of them is against Denver, and they need Denver to lose their last 2 games, and Cincinnati will find themselves in the playoff. I mean, how about that? 0-3, dug themselves a serious hole. It didn't look like they were going to get out of it. Now, look, the odds are still against the Bengals. Burrow has been fabulous this year. He has been unbelievable. And if he would, he'd probably be in the MVP, talk if they were, 9-5 or 10-4. But because they're 6-8 and their defense stinks, they're playing Cleveland, a bad Cleveland team, 3-11. It could get very interesting when it comes to the Bengals here in the last couple of weeks. The Bengals and Denver. And we'll see how that whole thing pans out. It could be very, very interesting. And if you look at the scenarios as far as what's going on in the AFC, Kansas City can obviously clinch the AFC's number one seed if they win and Buffalo loses or ties, or a Kansas City tie and a Buffalo loss. The Pittsburgh can clinch the AFC North division with a win. Baltimore clinches a playoff berth with a win or a Miami loss or tie. Or an Indy loss or tie. Miami and Indianapolis is still hanging on mathematically, but they're not going to get in. And then you look, the Chargers can clinch with if Miami gets out. We said last night the Chargers all but clinched. And Denver wins gets in a playoff berth with a Cincinnati loss or tie. So that's what's going on in the AFC. In the NFC, you got Philadelphia can clinch the East with a win, obviously. Green Bay can clinch a playoff berth with a win or a tie. Atlanta, a loss or a tie. And Atlanta is another funny kind of, they're switching quarterbacks now. Week 16, Atlanta's going to go and switch their quarterbacks. They're going to put Kirk Cousins on the bench. I'm not sure about that. I don't think it's really a good decision. And then you got the Washington scenarios. So Atlanta is really on the outside looking in. They need Seattle loss or tie, and they need a whole bunch of help. So I'm guessing most of the playoff berths are going to be wrapped up this weekend. And then it's just going to be jockeying for position, except maybe that Denver-Cincinnati, battle that's going to go on, and the top of the NFC. The top of the NFC, and then the Cincinnati and Denver in the AFC is really what you're going to be looking at, because I expect Washington to win, to get in. I don't know if they'll beat the Eagles, but we'll see. So now heading into this week 16, we're going to give you the Locked Up Sports Power 5. To me, today. Not yesterday, not the day before, not tomorrow. Now, depending on what happens, my rankings as of today. And we're going to start with number 5. And it's the first time that this team has been in my Power 5. And it's the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have come back. They've been playing excellent football. They have won a bunch of games in a row. They have played just, Jordan Love has been fantastic. They beat this. They were way too much for Seattle to handle at home, which is not an easy place to go play. The Packers are my number 5 at 10-4. At number 4, I got the Vikings. The Vikings, listen, they played well last week. Minnesota had they beat up on Chicago. Chicago kept hanging around, spite of mistakes. Sam Darnold threw a second quarter pick. He found himself, not playing great, but he was able to pull through. He found Justin Jefferson a couple times for touchdowns, and the Vikings pulled away late. They are 12-2. They are fighting right alongside the Eagles and the Lions for the top seed in the NFC. Number 3, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, again, I know they're 13-1. I know they're the 2-time defending champs. I know they have the best record in football. I just don't think they are the best, one of the best 2 teams in the NFL right now today. Okay, they another lucky win last week, hitting it off the upright, having the doink for the division, having it go in. They have just been walking tightropes. One of these weeks, it's going to collapse. And for their sake, I hope it's in the regular season, because they are ripe to be picked off. And I said the same thing last year, and they won the Super Bowl. But they are ripe to be picked off. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, I got the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, they beat number 1. They have the MVP, who I think is the MVP, although Lamar is right there. The Buffalo Bills are 11-3. They have 2 losses. They're not going to get the 1 seed. They're going to have to go into Arrowhead to win a playoff game and get through and get rid of the jinx and the monkey off their back of beating Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen, this is the year. They are 11-3. They're poised to win, probably go 14-3 or 13-4, something like that. They will be the 2 seed, I think. But they're going to have to go into Arrowhead and they're going to have to win a playoff game. And we'll see if they can do it. They are the number 2 team, the second best team in the NFL right now, according to me, though. And number 1, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. And the reason I have the Eagles, I know that they are 12-2. Okay, they're right there, again, with Minnesota and Detroit. But, you know, I mean, they are the best team. They have a running game. They have Saquon Barkley. They have the passing game. They have a good offensive line. They have a solid defense. They have the coaching. We'll see how it pans out. They could very easily end up the 5 seed and play in a home playoff game on wildcard weekend, or they could have home field. It's all to be decided. So if you notice the team I left out, and it kills me because I'm rooting for the Lions, is the Lions. I think with the injuries, with the way they played, with the coach, with the amount of points they gave up last weekend, and the defense not playing well, I just think they're just outside the top 5. So that is your Power 5 for this week, heading into Week 16. And it is the number 5 Green Bay Packers, number 4 the Minnesota Vikings, 3 the Chiefs, 2 the Bills, and the best team in the NFL right now, according to me, Bob Walters, the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's going to do it for us here today. Again, college playoff tonight. Notre Dame, Indiana, Ohio State plays. It should be good. You know, I'm going to watch it. I'll be locked in. That's what's going on tonight. NFL tomorrow. Big game, 2 big games tomorrow, and then, of course, all day Sunday. We'll be with you at Sunday night, Monday morning, either one, to talk to you about what went on and where we stand after Week 16, heading into Monday Night Football. So that's going to do it for me. Again, I want to thank Dexter Henry and everybody over at SNY for having me to the SNY studios. It was a dream. It was great. I had a blast. It was unbelievable. I got to do the show. Thank you to everybody who's acknowledged me on social media and everything. So thank you. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, as well as lockedupsports.net, and always on YouTube. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. So that does it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya.